Mohammed Kudus scored from here. Tottenham do not have another player in the squad that is capable of producing an X-factor moment of quality like that to win a game of football. And that is exactly why he would be such an exciting alternative to signing Eberechi Eze or Xavi Simons this summer. Those are two names that have dominated the discourse in the Spurs fan base so far this summer when it comes to that versatile attacking signing that Spurs are so obviously trying to get across the line. The Kudus links have heated up in the last 24 hours, and I'm going to tell you why he'd be a great fit. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it for me. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe and get involved in the comments and let me know your thoughts on this signing. We're going to crunch the numbers. We're going to look at why he might be a good fit. We're going to look at why there was a bit of a drop-off in Kudus' numbers last season and in his game, and is that something that Spurs fans should be worried about? We're going to talk about exactly where he might fit in this system, the sort of profiles in that front three that complement Kudus, and how we can get the best out of him and how he can get the best out of the other players that we've got in that front line as well. And we're going to compare him to the players already at the club and how he stacks up compared to the attackers that we already do have. Now, when you look at his quality, it's not just about the ability to produce moments like this, where he can drive through an entire midfield and score one of the goals of the season a couple of years ago in that Europa League run for West Ham. The thing that stands out to me the most with Kudus really is obviously his dribbling, but it's his physicality and it's his durability. That ability to ride the tackle is something that we have in the squad with Kulusevski, right? I think Kudus actually stacks up quite similarly to Kulusevski in terms of the numbers and in terms of profile as well, in terms of the ability to take players on, in terms of the ability to ride the tackle, get the team out of pressure, get the team up the pitch, especially when Kulusevski is playing centrally. I think they both kind of operate strongly as that kind of half-space player on the right. And I think especially with Kulusevski, suffering a significant injury, it's quite clear that Spurs want to try and bring someone in that can give us a little bit of what we're going to lose with Kulusevski. And obviously we're going to have to be careful with his minutes next season as well as he recovers from that knee injury. We don't quite know when he's going to be back yet, but he offers more than just being a rotation option for someone like Decky. He really, really does. In his dribbling, he's far less stiff. He's more fluid than someone like a Kulusevski. But one thing that stacks up similarly is that ability to ride the tackle and get out of pressure. You see here against Chelsea, Gallagher takes a swipe. He then comes inside the pitch. He's not just a straight line runner, which is, I think, is something that Kulusevski is, that Johnson is, that quite a few players in that attacking front line that Spurs have got are. Now, you see him drive into space. You see, again, that ability to draw players onto him, open up space for other players, and then pop it off. You see here against Newcastle as well. He's so good at being able to get West Ham out of pressure situations. He relieves so much pressure and then becomes such a threat in transition as well. You can give the ball to him and, one, expect something to happen off the back of it, but two, just feel a little bit more calm. You can just allow him to take a few players out the game and just get you up the pitch and relieve that pressure. You can see here, happy to drive in between two players, ride that first tackle, and then drop the shoulder and get away to drive into that space. He's got the pace to get away from players as well. And it's just that, for someone who is so strong and is able to hold players off with that frame that he's got, with that physicality, loves that sort of shoulder barge that we see with Kulusevski so often to just create that separation. He's so agile. And again, you see it here against Newcastle as well in the same game from a couple of seasons ago. Someone comes in, he's so happy just to barge him out of the way, drive at the pitch, then come inside of him, then go on the outside, and you literally have to drag him to the floor to try and stop him. Again here against Crystal Palace, gets away from Lerma, gets away from Munoz, gets away from Wharton. Three players there trying to tackle him. Wharton trying to drag him down, can't get away from him. Again, shifts it away from Munoz, trying to hack him down. And look at what that's opened up there for West Ham with players making those runs ahead of him. And when you look at his take on numbers, no player in the Premier League attempted more take-ons than him last season, and only Jeremy Doku had more successful take-ons than Mohammed Kudus last season. He's got more than Semenyo, more than Njai, more than Eze. He is so good at taking players out of the game, relieving that pressure, being such a threat in transition to get you up the pitch. And we know that Thomas Frank played a predominantly transition-based game for the most of the time that he was at Brentford. I'm not exactly saying that that's what he's going to do at Spurs, but that ability to play in more than one way, we know that we're going to come up against teams that are going to want to sit in against us next season. We know that, right? But Kudus, with his ability to produce moments, gives you a threat there to be able to unlock that low block, unlock a team, open up more space, and then be able to take advantage of it with his amazing ability to just drive through players. He is a player for all game states. And I think that's something that Spurs do lack when you look at the winger options that we do have. How does Kudus kind of compare then in terms of the numbers? And how does he complement maybe the other attackers that we do actually have already in that front line? The prospect of signing Kudus actually has changed my opinion on whether we should keep or sell one of these players. I'm going to tell you who that is later on in the video. But you can see here, looking at Kudus last season, I've actually got Kulusevski there for 2023-2024. I think that's because I've compared to forwards rather than midfielders, but we can go back and have another comparison in a sec. But Kudus, the most amount of attacking actions, the most amount of dribbles, expected goals and assists, less than Johnson and less than Son, but again, they're more final action players, but he's quite near them. More assists, the only player with more assists, Son Heung-Min. Key passes, not quite up there with Kulusevski and Son, but carries, he is right up there, and dribbles and attacking actions. A very well-rounded attacker that I think, again, with better attackers around him, you're going to see those numbers at West Ham go from 5 goals and 4 assists last season to hopefully something similar to what we saw at West Ham in that first season. And again, with Frank's track record of improving and refining attackers and getting the best out of them, Kudus is someone that really, really does excite me. Now, obviously, we did see a drop-off with Mohammed Kudus from this season to last season. We saw his assist numbers go down. His obviously goals go down as well. Similar in terms of his attacking action, his dribbles and his carries. Obviously, those didn't really drop off. It was more just kind of the output. And I do think we shouldn't get too drawn in about West Ham fans being happy to sell Kudus because they know they need the money. Now, Kudus, I think his head definitely did drop last season. I think he kind of down tools a little bit because I think he wanted that move the summer before. And West Ham were a bit of a basket case. There was a lot of chaos, and obviously Spurs were as well last season, but it definitely feels like there's more stability going into Spurs this season, obviously with the Champions League football, new manager, exciting project coming up. He wants out of West Ham, and they need the money. They need to sell to buy. There is a lot of work that needs to be done in that West Ham squad. So I think West Ham fans know that, and they acknowledge that they're going to have to sell a marquee player, whether that is Paqueta. Obviously, they've got the difficulties there around his ban, which makes Kudus the obvious one because they're not going to want to sell Jared Bowen. They're going to want to hold on to him for the rest of his life. But he did drop off last season, and that should be a little bit of a concern to us. But again, I do think with a more stable environment, with more quality around him, with a manager that is known for really getting the best out of his attacking players, improving attacking players, I think that should be something that's really excited for Kudus. And you're going to see him, hopefully, if he does sign for Spurs, grab games by the scruff of the neck like he did for West Ham in that first season, in Europe, crucially, and in the Premier League. And as he has done on the world stage for Ghana as well, a really impressive 2022 World Cup. That is one of the reasons why West Ham moved to sign him from Ajax. He is a really, really impressive player. And I think he can really complement some of the other attackers that we have got. And I'm going to come on to that shortly. But let's go through some more examples of some of his strengths before we kind of get back in to the data. Now, in terms of attacking the box, it's not just about how he drives into the box. Like I said, his progressive carry numbers are really, really good. If we look at this season just gone, like I said, successful take-ons. If you look at him versus other forwards in the Premier League, those progressive carries into the box, shot creating actions, really, really good. And if you look at him compared to other midfielders as well, again, he kind of blows them out the water, but it's obviously a bit skewed when you're comparing him to other positions. But he's so good at driving into the penalty area, but he's also very good at arriving in the penalty area as well. And when you pair him up maybe with someone like a Odebear, who is maybe a 1v1 winger on the other side, who can do a lot of the work that I think maybe this is Fornals on the left wing for West Ham, or Ben Rama maybe, that drops the shoulder, sends the defender and gets the cross into the box. You can see Kudus there attacking the back post, which is something that we obviously want our forwards to do, whether they are someone who is primarily involved in build-up, like a Kulusevski, or like a Kudus that is going to be, or whether you're a Brennan Johnson or a Heung-Min Son or a Matisse Tell, who you want maybe more to be a bit of a final action player. It's really good to see Kudus have that desire to get into the box. You can see here, long ball, Kudus playing in that number 10 position, turns and makes a really good burst to arrive into the box there, sweeping home with a first-time finish. Now, his finishing on both feet, again, is something that is really, really strong. Example here against Manchester United. I think most people will remember this game. West Ham turned the ball over, little 1-2 of Paqueta, and again, happy to take that onto his right foot, fire low and hard across the goalkeeper. His finishing can be lethal in those kind of situations. So can his crossing as well. And when you think about how I've seen other people talk about it in videos, and I've spoken about it as well, Thomas Frank is massive on crosses into the box, absolutely massive. He's always had kind of big target men centre forwards with Visser, who's got such great box presence, Ivan Toney, who's got such great box presence as well. I think Visser is obviously just more than just that, as is Toney. But when you've got someone with the crossing capability of Kudus, then that becomes really exciting. When you add that to the crossing capability that you've already got in that right wing with Kulusevski and with Porro as well, especially kind of in that half space. But you've got someone here who wants to get the ball in and whip it in on his left foot. You can see here for Souček, this is against Burnley. Really, really good cross. Again, here, driving into the penalty area, showcasing those progressive carries, wanting to commit players, get further up that pitch. It's the quick decision-making as well. Little drop of the shoulder and that little clipped cross so quickly because he recognises Bowen is in the space. And if he doesn't get that cross off quickly, one of the Brentford defenders there is going to be more alert to it and shut him down. It's just that quick thinking and that little clipped cross. And we do want to all see Solanke hold a little bit more box presence next season. I'm really excited about Solanke under Frank. And we do want to see him become more lethal and potent in and around the box. And I think having Kudus with that smart decision-making and ability to get you into the box, especially when you're playing against low blocks, will be really helpful for Solanke as well to kind of make him focus on just being a threat in and around that penalty area. And again, here, crossing on the left-hand side as well, really, really good. Obviously, that versatility coming into play. And again, with from outside the box as well, it's not just his crossing, but it's his shooting. Again, I feel like sometimes this is one thing I want Kulusevski to improve on. We know he's a good finisher from in and around the box, but I feel like sometimes he either wants to take that extra touch or that extra pass maybe. You want him to get that shot off. Kudus so comfortable doing it on both feet, but he's so quick at getting out of his feet to leather the ball into the back of the net. Again here, same game as he scored that unbelievable goal against Freiburg. Souček drives forward, lays it off to Bowen, little roll on the studs, and then bang, such a sharp shooter in and around the box. And I think that is something that Spurs are going to want to add, especially when they want to drive forward quickly, if they do want to be more of a transitional threat under Thomas Frank. But also, again, when you're playing against settled low blocks, you want someone who is going to take that risk, firing shots off from outside the box. I feel like we're too safe in that aspect. And I feel like Matisse Tell is a player that we want to see do that more next season. If you're playing Tell and Kudus as a wing pairing, then I think you're going to see them both be brave, especially when teams do sit off. Tell with that curled shot into the corner, Kudus firing those low, hard-driven shots. We see him do it so much. Take a couple of players out of the game with his kind of jinky dribbling in tight spaces, but he also thrives running into open space as well, and that is when that transitional threat does come in as well. These two goals were scored in the same game against Wolves. Paqueta driving forward, Kudus here, a really good example. Both of these goals are a really good example of the variance in his transitional threat as well. Here, 3 players back for Wolves, happy to kind of stand up the fullback, drive inside, and then drag that shot back across the goalkeeper. This one, when the game has opened up a little bit more because West Ham have got that early advantage, Paqueta can play that ball in behind to Kudus, who has got the pace, the Brennan Johnson-like pace, to kind of get away in that space, and he finishes it really, really well. But again, it's not just on the ball what he offers or running into that space, it's also his pressing numbers are pretty decent as well. His recovery ability is pretty good. Again, a couple of examples of him pressing against Tottenham in that game a couple of seasons ago. He gave Porro a bit of a nightmare in this game, wins it back off him here, and then wins it back off him here. He's got that tenacity and has got that hunger, and I feel like that is something that people won't necessarily think about when it comes to Mohammed Kudus, but we have got some stats that back that up as well. You can see here in the last 365 days, ranks in the top 1 percentile for ball recoveries, for tackles as well in the top 3 percentile. He's a very effective presser. He has got that hunger, that energy, and that tenacity that Thomas Frank is going to be looking for. I just think it's something that people don't necessarily think of when they think of Mohammed Kudus, because maybe some of the so-called attitude problems that we saw at West Ham last season, or you think about other aspects of his game, of the magical moments that he's able to create on the ball. But while we're here kind of looking at the stats, when you compare him to other forwards in Europe's top 5 leagues over the last year or so, there's a lot of green there, a lot of green. And obviously it's skewed because you're comparing him to forwards, but it shows you his take on ability, his ball recovery ability, like I said as well, his shot creating actions as well, his carrying distance, running into open spaces. He's a really, really nice option, I think, for Spurs. And again, when you compare him to midfielders, you look at the shots, the shot creating actions, the goal creating actions, take-ons attempted. When you look at him versus attacking midfielders, wingers, there's still a hell of a lot of green there. Take-on attempts, successful take-ons, pass completion. And again, I think his decision-making at times could be a little bit better. I think sometimes he plays with his head down a little bit too much at times. But I think one thing, when you've got players in that front line for Spurs that are a little bit risk averse in Brennan Johnson or maybe Heung-Min Son or Wilson Odobert, I think is a little bit too risk averse for the talent that he has got. I think it's nice for someone to come in, to get things wrong, but also be able to produce a moment of quality. Players like that, players like Mavericks, like Kudus, like Eze as well, if he was to come in, like Xavi Simons, are always going to get things wrong. They're always going to have moments where they play with their head down, where they don't pick the pass at the right time. That's just kind of the trade-off of being a player that has that much creative instinct that they want to maybe take an extra touch or get a shot off because they know that they can try something, or a cross that might just not come off. He can be quite frustrating. I think he found him quite frustrating last season. I know a lot of West Ham fans did, but I think there is so much upside, and I think a lot of that upside comes from how he can complement the other forwards in that squad, especially when you've got Solanke, who is a striker that likes to get involved in build-up, that is going to allow more space for Kudus to kind of run into, but also Solanke's link-up play is really, really good as well. Kudus is going to want to come into these kind of central areas. Porro is going to want to get a bit wider as a result of that. He can combine really nicely with Maddison. But when you're looking at kind of a front three, I think this is something that suits really nicely because you've got a profile there in Tell. You always like to balance the kind of winger profiles in a front line, right? You want someone that, like Matisse Tell, who is so good at kind of running into space, kind of as that inside forward. You've got Kudus there, who is so capable of taking on players on the outside and on the inside. He commits so many men around him, like we looked at with his ability to kind of ride tackles and his dribbling ability, which we're going to come on to now. He commits so many players around him. He gets the ball in the half space like this, kills it dead with a touch. He's got 4 players around him there. He's so comfortable driving into the penalty area. And then when you've got forwards like Johnson, like Tell, like Son as well, that are really happy to attack the box and be aggressive, that is exactly what you want. It's a great balance of profiles in that front line because you've got Kudus there that will get to the byline, crack that ball back. You want Solanke to be in and around that 6-yard area. You want Tell attacking the back post. You want Johnson, if he's going to play on the left, attacking the back post. Or if Johnson's playing on the right, I think having Kudus on the left with the versatility that he offers balances it out really nicely as well. Solanke, a striker that can be a box presence, that can drop in and link play, that can allow space in behind for the likes of Johnson and Kudus, but Kudus taking players out of the game on his own accord, bringing 3 or 4 players around him with the kind of gravity that he does have, his crossing ability as well. I think Johnson and Tell especially, and Son, are going to kind of be lighting up when they see a player like Kudus who is capable of taking that many players out of the game. We've been crying out for a really established 1v1 player, and I think Kudus definitely is that. Again here, driving into the box against Luton a couple of seasons ago, squares up his man. Again, you've got Bowen there. You've got, I can't remember who the number 40 is for West Ham, attacking the box in the penalty area. You've got Paqueta there on the cutback. Maddison might want it if that's him. But again, he stops and then has that ability and explosive pace to drive and then commit and get to the byline. I don't feel like we have a winger that is hungry enough or capable enough of doing that. Again, here you see him on his left foot out on the left wing, dribbling inside, shaping up a man, jinking going on the outside, taking another player out of the game. A crossing opportunity then presents itself with Kudus. Again, here against Luton out on that left-hand side, little ball roll, little step over, then jinks to go on the outside, holds a cross up for Antonio at the back post. Again, you want Solanke in those kind of areas. It's really, really exciting. I think it's really, really exciting to have someone like him there. But like I said, for that balance and that blend of profile in that front line, when you have got a player like Kudus who wants to take players out of the game, who is happy to ride challenges, who is happy to take multiple players on, he might lose the ball, but the space that he's going to open up for other players, and then he can pop it off or he can get that cross in. I think it's a really nice blend in that front line. And I actually think he probably offers you more than Eze in that aspect, with that take-on ability, the ability to drive centrally and out wide on both feet as well. Finishing on both feet, dribbling on both feet, crossing on both feet is something that Mohammed Kudus 100% offers. And I think those back post monsters like Johnson, like what we kind of want to turn Tell into, will be licking their lips as a result of having Kudus in the side, playing on either flank, in my opinion. But again, X-Factor quality, we want a bums-off-seats player at Tottenham. We do. And this is a great example of it. Obviously, that goal against Freiburg that we talked about at the start of the video. This bicycle kick against Man City. Again, who in the Spurs squad is doing that? This touch against Arsenal to pluck that out of the sky and then finish coming in off that right-hand side. This bicycle kick against Brentford. You know, it's just... He's a really, really exciting player that I think marries up so well with the profiles that we do have in that attack. I think you could probably get away with Kudus being that only attacking signing with the versatility that he does offer. If you bring in Kudus, a good defensive midfielder, a deep line playmaker, and some defensive depth, I would be quite happy with that as a transfer window. Also, against teams who are going to sit in against us a little bit more, you can play Kudus and Kulusevski together. They're both so good at holding onto the ball in the final third. Kudus out on that left-hand side is super comfortable with it. Kulusevski kind of holding that width, allowing Porro to kind of come into the half space, get those crosses, or vice versa. Kulusevski coming inside, Porro kind of going around the outside. Kudus driving inside, a doggy on the overlap, or a doggy coming inside, and Kudus kind of going to the byline to stand up those crosses, or and gets the byline. He's such a really exciting prospect, in my opinion, who just has that X factor that I think Simmons and Eze 100% offer you. Statistically, those three players do stack up quite similarly. There are certain aspects of one or another's game that do blow the other out the water, maybe. Like Simmons, with the progressive carries, is stronger than Kudus, but Kudus is stronger than Eze quite significantly, actually. And I think Spurs, when they're looking to replicate what they might lose in Kulusevski through injury or looking to rotate him, I think Kudus is the best option, in my opinion. But then again, when you look at the dribbles, Kudus is a better dribbler or a more successful dribbler than Eze and Simmons over short distances and over long distances as well. Eze with the most amount of key passes, but you've got Maddison maybe for that as well. So you can kind of balance it out there with maybe what you lose out on by not signing Eze. But attacking actions, Kudus is the strongest. I think, look, any of these three players would improve Tottenham 100%, but maybe Kudus with that balance that he adds to that front three in terms of the profiles that already exist at Tottenham, especially if he is going to be the only attacking signing, and the versatility that he does offer, being able to play the 10. They're clearly looking for a 10 to manage Maddison's minutes, a right winger and a left winger. I think he presents so much value when you compare him to the likes of Semenyo, a more realistic target or a more attainable target than maybe Eze or Simmons potentially. And again, Eze, it kind of comes down to the wages. Spurs might be one of the only significant players in the race for Kudus, etc. But I do think, although Chelsea have been linked as well, I do think Tottenham have got a very good chance of getting this done. And like I said, I think the thing that excites me the most is the blend that he adds to that attack, the balance of profiles in that front line. Play him on the right, you play Tell, or you play Son on the left. And I think Son is a player that I was quite keen on maybe moving on, getting some money for. But I think if you keep him around now as a squad option with a player on the right-hand side like Kudus, who has got that take-on ability, that ability to draw men over to him, to open up the space for a Son or Tell to run into, that is where they thrive, running into more open spaces, especially Sonny, especially with the stage that he is in his career. You don't want him operating as a touchline winger, you want him attacking the space. Having a player like Kudus, with the gravity that he has, that ability to draw players in, opens up that space for the other flank. That ability to switch the ball quickly, getting a player like Tell or Son 1v1 versus the fullback, or running into a space where they're one-on-one versus the goalkeeper. I think it's a really exciting signing, in my opinion, and would be well worth the £70 million that Spurs are potentially looking to pay for him. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you rather sign Eze? Would you rather sign Simmons? Or would you rather bring Kudus? I think he actually makes the most sense as a fit. I think Eze is the name that we all want. Simmons is such an exciting player. And I'm not just saying this because we have been linked to him and you're kind of falling for it and you're kind of gaslighting yourself. I do think when you actually break it down and look at Kudus' strengths, I think he does make the most sense. So make sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hopefully Spurs can get this one done and add that bit of X factor to that attack that we are craving. Nice one.